And for more on this, we are now being joined by Dr. Andrew Ferris. He's the CEO, eCoach Gnosis, if I'm not wrong, Advisory Limited. Now, he's joining us live from Hong Kong. Welcome to the broadcast. Now, let me begin by asking you, key factors driving the increasing use of the yuan in international trade and payments. What do you think?
Well, this has to be placed very, very firmly on a quantitative basis. The notion that the renminbi is challenging the position of the US dollar is completely absurd. Right now, the sum total of global transactions, and that includes current account and where permitted capital, the renminbi accounts anything between 4 to 6%. Actually, it is less than that of the Canadian dollar. So yes, it has been increasing. It has been increasing with wide fluctuations. Actually, during the course of 23-24, it moved anything between 2 and now between 4 and 6%. True, it is increasing. But if this challenges the US dollar, I find this a little bit absurd because, of course, there are several other currencies that are much more important than the renminbi in global transactions. So as I said, it has to be firmly placed in a quantitative basis. If in a year's time the renminbi accounts for 50 or 60% of global transactions, then of course, I will change my mind. I will have to change my mind.
Right. Now, that being said, what is your assessment of the current state of de-dollarization efforts globally? We know that Saudi Arabia was doing that, and even Global South is moving towards de-dollarization. What do you think?
Yeah, one has to be incredibly careful, and God is in the details. Countries that use renminbi, actually, you mentioned that the Ukrainian-Russian war and the impositions of sanctions in Russia led countries to use the renminbi. Which were these countries? Of course, it was Russia, obviously. Okay, it was Iran, partially India, that buy oil from Russia, and they have agreed not so much in using the Russian ruble, but using the renminbi. So in other words, and the same thing goes with Saudi Arabia, whose single transaction is selling oil. Okay, and oil, of course, is traded overwhelmingly in US dollars. So sifting a little bit out of that might not be a bad idea in terms of diversification. But, these notions that all these countries are shifting massively their transactions from US dollar to the renminbi, you have to watch it. Okay, you have to watch. And the key word here is oil.
It's interesting you mentioned that. So what are the potential risks and benefits for the countries that are actively pursuing de-dollarization?
Well, like I hope a good economist, I will tell you diversify, it's always very important. So we are coming now to the diversification of foreign exchange reserves, which is very, very important and completely different from diversifying the currency you are using in order to buy and sell goods. I would have liked to see the expression in the face of an Indian exporter, let's say of textiles, in China, if he was told he's going to be paid in renminbi. As long, of course, as the renminbi is fully convertible, but also, of course, the renminbi does fluctuate. Okay, it is not a fully floating currency, but in the last 12 months, actually in the last, let's say, 18 months, the renminbi lost 10% of its value. So in other words, if you are using it, you have to keep in mind that it can and does fluctuate. Whereas the US dollar, in a sense, because everything else is traded against the US dollar, the US dollar doesn't fluctuate. The US dollar, $1 is worth $1.
All right. Well, thank you. That was Dr. Andrew Ferris, CEO, eCoach Gnosis Advisory Limited, joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you so much for joining us.